Lionel Messi had spent years under the spotlight, stadiums packed with roaring fans, cameras flashing in his face, reporters chasing after every word he said or didn't say. But even legends need silence. And so, without any press, paparazzi, or promotion, he quietly arranged a short getaway, not to some extravagant celebrity island filled with velvet ropes and media coverage, but to the quieter side of the Mediterranean, where the air smelled of sea salt and peace. He didn't want attention. He didn't want red carpets or a crew of assistants following him around. What he wanted was stillness. He booked a yacht, not the massive kind with 12 bedrooms and a helipad, but a smaller, more modest vessel. Tastefully elegant, quietly beautiful, like him. It had everything he needed: calm water, a few close friends, a deck to sit on at sunset, and just enough distance from the world to remember who he was beyond football. Messi arrived at the marina in the early morning, dressed simply: black shorts, a plain white tee, worn-in sneakers, and a cap pulled low. No designer brands flashed across his chest. No flashy watches screamed for attention. To the average person walking by, he could have been anyone. And that's how he liked it. But unfortunately, the world he lived in, no matter how quiet his entry, had a way of noticing him, even when he didn't ask for it. Just 2 docks over, a grand luxury yacht party was already underway. Loud music echoed over the bay. Expensive champagne bottles were being popped, influencers posed with designer sunglasses for their social media reels, and laughter was loud and unfiltered. Every person on that boat looked like they were trying to prove something to someone. As Messi's yacht pulled up, the music seemed to pause for a beat, not literally, but in that way when people sense something unusual. A few eyes glanced over, not out of admiration, but out of confusion. Who was this guy arriving alone on a plain yacht? Why wasn't he dressed up? Why didn't he have a camera crew or a luxury car escort? The whispers began almost instantly. Is that Messi? A tan guy in a Gucci shirt asked, squinting as he lifted his sunglasses. No way, said a girl perched on the edge of a lounge chair, sipping something sparkly. Messi wouldn't ride on that. Must be someone who thinks he's Messi. A few people pulled out their phones, zoomed in, and began laughing. He's got flip-flops on. Are you serious? Looks like he's renting the yacht for a day. Probably borrowed money just to look rich. Fallen off hard, huh? The words weren't loud enough to be heard from the other dock, but they weren't exactly whispered either. Their energy was mocking. And more than a few people had already posted short clips with sarcastic captions: Messi wannabe caught cruising economy. As Messi stepped onto the dock, one guy, tall, wearing 3 chains and a smirk, purposefully walked into his path. Yo, this side of the dock is for VIP yachts, he said, pretending to stretch and block the walkway. You might be looking for the ferry port. Messi paused. Not annoyed. Not angry. Just tired. He gave a polite smile, nodded once, and stepped around the group without a word. To anyone watching closely, it would have been clear, this wasn't a man who needed to prove anything. Not with words. Not with yachts. Not with a designer label. He stepped aboard his quiet little boat, took a seat at the edge of the deck, and stared out at the sea like it had been waiting just for him. He didn't know it yet, but this brief encounter, this small act of quiet grace, was about to unravel into something much bigger. Something no one, not the influencers, not the critics, not even Messi himself, could have predicted. The sun had begun its slow climb toward the peak of the sky, casting golden streaks across the Mediterranean waves as the party on the mega-yacht only grew louder. The laughter, the clinking of crystal glasses, the sound of a shallow DJ set trying to mimic something meaningful, all of it spilled across the dockside like perfume too strong for its own good. People preened and postured, hoping their next Instagram story would go viral, hoping to catch the eye of someone with more clout than themselves. No one noticed the faint thrum in the sky at first. It was distant, rhythmic, like a heartbeat coming closer. But as it grew louder, heads began to turn, fingers pointed upward, and sunglasses tilted to catch a clearer view. A sleek black helicopter broke through the horizon, slicing across the sky like something out of a high-budget film. It was a spectacle. A perfect entry. The kind of arrival that screamed status, celebrity, and power. The kind of thing the party yacht crowd lived for. "Oh my God, is that who I think it is?" a woman asked breathlessly, fixing her hair reflexively. "Only one guy lands like that," another man said, adjusting his gold chain and puffing out his chest like it would somehow make him worthy by association. "It's Cristiano Ronaldo." Excitement crackled through the air like electricity. Phones whipped out. People posed as they recorded, hoping to look effortlessly cool if they ended up in the background of a viral reel. Even the DJ, noticing the shift in energy, changed the track to a remix of an old Ronaldo goal celebration anthem. The helicopter hovered for a moment over the rooftop helipad of the resort next to the marina and then gracefully descended. As the rotors slowed, a door opened, and out stepped Cristiano Ronaldo, tall, sharp, perfectly styled. He was dressed in designer casuals that looked like they were made just for him, sunglasses reflecting the sunlight, every movement exuding confidence that had been earned, not borrowed. He descended the stairs flanked by 2 assistants and a low-profile security detail. Though he had long since gotten used to scenes like this, Ronaldo still walked with awareness. He knew people watched, judged, admired, envied. It came with the territory. But today, something caught his attention. As he approached the row of yachts, laughing briefly at something his assistant said, he caught a strange tension in the air, a mix of mockery and curiosity floating between glances. The group that had been partying now looked awkward, exchanging whispers and awkward smiles as he passed. Ronaldo raised a brow. "What's the joke?" he asked casually, half smiling, though there was weight behind the question. One of the partygoers, thinking he was being charming or clever, leaned in with a smirk. "You just missed the show, man. Some Messi lookalike tried docking here earlier. Renting a tiny boat like it was the Champions League trophy." Ronaldo's steps slowed. He looked past the group, scanning the marina. His eyes landed on a small, understated yacht at the far side of the dock. There, sitting peacefully with his legs stretched out and a drink in his hand, was the real Lionel Messi. His head was tilted slightly back as he looked out over the waves. Calm. Unbothered. Completely unaware, or perhaps simply uninterested, in the circus just a few feet away. Ronaldo didn't smile. Not yet. He didn't say a word to the guy who had made the joke. Instead, he adjusted his watch, looked down the dock, and walked. Past the oversized yacht with its LED-lit deck. Past the group still trying to figure out what they'd said wrong. Past the yacht they all assumed he'd be getting on. He made his way directly to Messi's boat. The group fell completely silent. As Ronaldo reached the edge of the yacht, Messi turned slightly and raised a brow in amused recognition. "You always did like a dramatic entrance," Messi said, his voice light, teasing. Ronaldo smirked. "And you always did like showing up under the radar, like a ghost in flip-flops." They shared a brief handshake that turned into a half-hug, not the kind of staged photo-op fans are used to, but the quiet, real kind that speaks to a shared history. Years of competition. Decades of media-fueled rivalry. Respect earned in sweat, bruises, and brilliance on the pitch. And in that single moment, the story changed completely. The very same people who had mocked Messi now stared in disbelief. Their jaws hung open like props in a bad movie. Phones that had once recorded in ridicule now hesitated. Because in that unexpected scene, they witnessed something undeniable. Cristiano Ronaldo, the man they had all just celebrated, had bypassed all the luxury, all the glamour, all the staged perfection, to sit beside the man they had mocked. He didn't care about the yacht. He cared about the man on it. And suddenly, everyone else began to wonder what they had missed. The dock had never felt quieter. For all the noise the party yacht had made just minutes ago, the booming bass, the self-important laughter, the bragging over bottle brands, it had now fallen into an eerie silence. The air was heavy with the weight of realization, and the wind seemed to still in respect to the moment unfolding before everyone's eyes. Cristiano Ronaldo, global superstar, record breaker, and fashion icon, was not boarding the superyacht reserved for him. He was not waving to fans or making headlines with a lavish arrival. No, he was sitting beside Lionel Messi on a modest yacht, wearing an expression of ease and familiarity, sipping a chilled drink Messi had just poured for him from a simple bottle of sparkling water. They sat like old friends who had no need to fill silence with noise. A pair of seagulls circled overhead, and the water lapped gently at the side of the boat. It was the most human moment either of them had shared in public in a long time, and perhaps that's what made it so powerful. Here were two of the most iconic athletes in the world, men who had been compared, contrasted, and pitted against each other for over 15 years, sitting side by side, relaxed, unguarded, and entirely indifferent to the spectacle they'd inadvertently created. Meanwhile, on the party yacht, discomfort had settled in. The girl who had giggled about Messi's sandals now held her drink awkwardly, staring at it like it might give her advice. The guy who had mocked the cheap rental boat was refreshing his phone nervously, already seeing memes beginning to circulate, clips of Ronaldo walking past him, of Messi sitting calmly in his element, of that handshake that seemed to echo through every social feed like a trumpet of truth. The influencers, normally quick to post and even quicker to spin stories, didn't know what to do. Their carefully crafted images of luxury and influence now seemed childish, flimsy, almost laughable. A few of them even debated quietly among themselves. "Do we post about it?" one whispered. "Are you crazy?" another replied. "We just mocked him on video." "You want to be known as the guy who humiliated Messi before Ronaldo pulled up and sat with him like a brother?" Others tried to salvage the moment. A well-known TikToker opened his camera, forcing a smile. "Hey guys, crazy day at the dock, guess who we ran into?" But the energy was all wrong. It was forced, desperate, the kind of content that feels like a lie even before it's edited. Messi, however, remained blissfully unaware or entirely unfazed. He pointed at the horizon and said something to Ronaldo that made him laugh, not a public laugh, not a celebrity chuckle meant for the cameras, but a real, chest-deep laugh that you only share when you're talking to someone who truly gets you. Maybe it was a private joke about a match they both remembered. Maybe it was just the absurdity of the situation. Either way, it was authentic. And authenticity, in a place so obsessed with appearance, was louder than any party. What stunned the crowd most was that Messi didn't gloat. He didn't shoot glances toward the party yacht. He didn't call anyone out. He didn't try to reclaim dignity with words or stares or grand gestures. Because for people like him, dignity is not something that needs to be reclaimed, it's something that never left. Ronaldo, always more direct, did glance at the party yacht once. Just once. His gaze, sharp but calm, settled on the group watching in stunned silence. There was no malice in his eyes, only disappointment. And perhaps a quiet question: this is who you mock? This man? This legend? And then, without breaking stride in the conversation with Messi, Ronaldo said something that floated across the water like poetry, casual but deliberate. "You know, there's wealth you can flex, and then there's class you can't fake." The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They pierced deeper than insults ever could. People heard it, those on the yacht, those by the dock, even a few locals who had wandered over once they saw the growing crowd. And in that moment, the entire dynamic shifted. The party yacht no longer felt like the center of attention. It felt like a sideshow, a hollow echo of something trying to matter. All eyes turned to Messi and Ronaldo, not because they were famous, but because they were real. In a world addicted to surface-level shine, here sat two men who reminded everyone watching what substance looked like. The sea sparkled in the sunlight. The laughter of the party boat faded further into the background. And on that quiet yacht, floating with humility and history, sat two giants who needed no words to prove their greatness. The silence that followed spoke louder than any applause. As the sun began to slide down toward the horizon, the golden hour cast a warm, cinematic light over the dock. The gentle waves shimmered like molten glass, and the noise from the party yacht had thinned into awkward murmurs and half-hearted music. Whatever excitement had once filled the air had now been replaced with a heavy, reverent hush. Something had shifted, something intangible, but deeply felt. And then, from the edge of the dock, came a sound that sliced through the stillness in the most unexpected way, the hesitant shuffle of small footsteps. A young boy, no older than 9 or 10, clutched a slightly worn football in his arms as he walked slowly, his father trailing just behind him. They weren't dressed for the setting, no designer brands or luxury watches. The boy wore a faded Barcelona jersey, and his sneakers looked like they'd been through dozens of street games. His father looked unsure, glancing toward the yachts and the crowd, as if he was already regretting letting his son walk this far. The boy wasn't there to impress anyone. He wasn't there for selfies or social media clout. He had seen something few others had noticed: Messi. The real Messi. Not on a screen, not in a stadium far away, but right there, sitting on a yacht like a normal person. He didn't want to interrupt, but his small feet kept moving forward, pulled by something stronger than hesitation: hope. Messi noticed him immediately. Amid the luxury boats, the awkward influencers, and the blinding reflections of the setting sun, it was this shy boy in a too-big jersey that caught his attention. He smiled softly. With a gentle wave, Messi called out, "Come on over, champ." The boy froze, then looked up at his father, who simply nodded. That nod was all the permission he needed. As the boy stepped onto the yacht, Messi reached for his football, took it in his hands with the reverence of someone who still remembered what it meant to love the game as a child. He didn't just sign it. He asked the boy his name, where he played, what position he liked. "Midfield," the boy said, voice barely above a whisper. Messi grinned. "The brain of the game. You have good taste." The boy's eyes lit up, and his nervousness began to melt away. Then, without any fuss or fanfare, Messi stood up, nudged the ball forward with his foot, and said, "Let's see a few touches." And just like that, the most impromptu, magical moment unfolded. Messi and the boy started juggling the ball between them, soft taps, short passes, laughter. Ronaldo stood by the side, arms crossed with a crooked smile, clearly enjoying the scene. After a moment, he couldn't help himself. "Mind if I join?" The boy's jaw dropped, looking from one legend to the other as if he'd just stepped into a dream he didn't even dare imagine. Messi chuckled and nodded. And there it was, one boy, playing football on a dock in the Mediterranean with both Messi and Ronaldo. The scene looked too perfect to be real. No cameras. No choreography. No hashtags. Just football. People began to gather again, but this time no one jeered or laughed. The influencers put their phones down. For once, they didn't want to filter or edit the moment, they wanted to feel it. Some even felt a lump in their throats as they watched the boy try to nutmeg Ronaldo, who feigned surprise with exaggerated drama. "You've got quick feet," Ronaldo said, ruffling the boy's hair. "You've got quick everything," the boy blurted out, and all three of them laughed. From the sidelines, the father stood silently, arms crossed over his chest, a single tear rolling down his cheek. He knew his son would never forget this day. He probably wouldn't even sleep tonight. And neither would he. After a few more minutes of play, Messi knelt down beside the boy and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You love the game, right?" The boy nodded quickly, eyes wide. "Then promise me something," Messi said. "Play with your heart, not just your feet. Respect your teammates, love the ball, and never let someone else tell you your dream is too big." The boy nodded again, this time slower, as if he was absorbing every syllable. Before the boy stepped off the yacht, Messi slipped something into his hand, a small wristband he always wore during practice, a good luck charm of sorts. "For you," he said. To remind you what matters. As the boy and his father walked away, a few people started clapping. Not the kind of applause that seeks attention, but the soft, rising kind that comes from the soul. Some were clapping for Messi, some for Ronaldo, but most for what they had just witnessed, something pure, untainted by money, fame, or ego. Even the most cynical faces on the party yacht looked changed. One of the influencers, known more for pranks than principles, whispered to his friend, "I don't know why, but I feel like I've been living in the wrong movie." Nearby, another girl, who had earlier laughed at Messi's plain outfit, sat down on the edge of the dock, staring at the sea in silence, humbled in a way she hadn't expected. The sunset deepened, painting the sky with rich hues of orange and pink. And there, at the center of it all, were two men, no longer rivals in that moment, but role models, and one lucky boy whose dream had come true not with noise, but with kindness. As twilight crept in and the fiery colors of the sunset gave way to the deep hues of early evening, the once glamorous party yacht now sat in the background like an abandoned prop. Its lights still shimmered, its speakers still pulsed with soft music, but the energy had evaporated. The atmosphere had changed so completely that even the influencers, once proudly commanding the marina's attention, now lingered in pockets of silence, some sipping quietly, others scrolling endlessly through their phones, unsure of what they were looking for. But one among them couldn't ignore the knot growing in his chest. His name was Rayhan, a popular content creator known for his over-the-top vlogs, prank videos, and exaggerated luxury lifestyle showcases. He had 1 million followers, a series of brand deals, and a reputation for being unfiltered. Earlier that day, he had been the loudest voice mocking Messi. It was his phone that had captured the sarcastic, "VIP doc only" comment. He had even started a group laugh when someone joked that Messi probably couldn't even afford a bottle service fee at a beach club. But now, as the boy walked away clutching the signed ball, with both Messi and Ronaldo waving at him like he was a lifelong friend, something inside Rayhan felt off. Heavy. Wrong. And it wasn't just guilt, it was shame. The kind that goes deeper than embarrassment, the kind that forces you to sit with yourself and realize how small you've been acting. The voice in his head, the one he usually drowned out with likes and applause, was louder than ever. What if today, for the first time, people saw who you really are? With a breath he didn't know he was holding, Rayhan stood up. He didn't rehearse a speech. He didn't open his phone to record himself. He just walked, awkwardly and slowly, toward Messi's yacht. He passed others from the party who looked up, confused. No one followed. No one stopped him. It felt like something he had to do alone. When he reached the edge of the boat, Messi was still sitting, now talking softly with Ronaldo while watching the water as the lights of the marina flickered around them. Rayhan cleared his throat. "Excuse me. Leo." Messi looked up, calm and unreadable. Rayhan hesitated. Every instinct in him told him to turn around, to run from the awkwardness. But he stayed. I owe you an apology," he said, voice quieter than anyone had ever heard it. "Earlier, when you arrived, I said things. Rude things. I judged you. Mocked you. And I recorded it. It was meant to be. I don't know, content, I guess. Funny. But it wasn't." Messi didn't respond right away. He just listened. Rayhan swallowed. "Then I saw you with the kid. I saw how you didn't care about proving anything. You just are. And I realized everything I thought made someone worth respecting, money, yachts, fame, it means nothing if you don't have character. And you've got more of that than anyone I've ever seen." Still, Messi said nothing. Rayhan stepped a bit closer. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say it. Out loud." At that, Messi finally stood. He walked over, and for a moment Rayhan braced himself for a lecture, or worse, silence. But Messi extended his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "It takes more strength to apologize than it does to impress." Rayhan blinked, then took the handshake with both hands, as if clinging to something sacred. I won't delete the video, he added quickly. But I'll post the truth. The whole story. Not for views, just because I think people need to see what I saw. Messi smiled faintly and nodded. That's your choice. Ronaldo, who had been listening from a few steps away, added without looking up, it's easy to follow trends. Harder to break patterns. As Rayhan turned to walk away, his shoulders felt lighter than they had in years. The next day, the video went live. It didn't start with a flashy intro or loud music. It opened with Rayhan sitting in silence for a few seconds before speaking straight into the lens. I met Lionel Messi. I mocked him. I made fun of his yacht, his clothes, everything. But then I watched him change a young boy's life with nothing but kindness. And I watched Cristiano Ronaldo treat him like a brother while the rest of us laughed behind screens. This video isn't about canceling me. It's about waking up. The video spread like wildfire. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was honest. In a digital world so often full of filters and fakes, raw truth stood out like a flame in the dark. Comments flooded in from people who had never cared about football, from parents showing it to their kids, from teachers sharing it in classrooms. It became a lesson, a conversation starter, a movement. The hashtags began to trend, not because of some marketing stunt, but because people felt connected to what it revealed. Hashtag respect over riches, hashtag be like Messi, and most memorably, hashtag quiet goat, a reference to how Messi had handled it all without needing to say a single harsh word. People began posting their own stories, of kindness, of being judged, of moments they regretted. The ripple effect was bigger than anyone expected. And in the middle of it all, Messi never posted a thing. He didn't need to. Because while others were scrambling to build legacies through noise, he had built his quietly, with grace, and now, the world was finally hearing it loud and clear. The sun had fully dipped below the Mediterranean horizon, and the sky had turned into a deep tapestry of violet and indigo. The yacht lights shimmered like distant stars on the water, and a soft breeze whispered through the marina. What had begun as just another day of flaunting status and empty glamour had now taken on the air of something sacred, something quietly historic. Back on dry land, people were still talking, not with the volume of mockery, but with the hush of realization. Conversations were no longer about what brand someone was wearing or who had the most Instagram-worthy yacht setup. Instead, the dock was filled with quiet retellings of what they had just witnessed. People who barely spoke to each other before were now standing in small clusters, asking, "Did you see the way Messi looked at that kid? Did you hear what Ronaldo said?" And then came the video. It hadn't even been an hour since Rayhan, the influencer who had walked up to Messi with an apology and trembling hands, posted his confession. There was no clickbait title, no filters, no music overlays. Just him, in the glow of the marina lights, telling the truth. By midnight, the video had been seen by over 500,000 people. By dawn, it would cross 5 million. I judged a man who changed the world with his feet, and forgot he's still changing it with his heart, Rayhan said near the end of the video. We mocked him for not playing the fame game. But the joke was on us. Because while we were chasing likes, he was changing lives. The comments section exploded with emotions. One user wrote, "This video made me sit down and talk to my son about humility for the first time." Another added, "Ronaldo showing up like a lion and sitting beside Messi like a brother, that's the kind of masculinity we should be talking about." A retired teacher wrote, "I showed this in my classroom today. We had a 40-minute discussion on ego, kindness, and what real greatness looks like." Suddenly, people around the world started revisiting how they viewed celebrity, success, and legacy. Edits popped up, video compilations of Messi's most selfless moments both on and off the pitch. People dug up clips of him picking up trash after games, comforting young fans, and remaining calm during interviews meant to provoke him. All of it had existed before, but this time, it was seen in a different light. And in the middle of this wave of appreciation and reflection, Ronaldo did something few expected. On his official Instagram, a platform known for his iconic training shots, fashion campaigns, and behind-the-scenes glimpses into his elite lifestyle, Ronaldo posted just one photo. It was a candid shot from the yacht, taken by someone nearby, Messi and Ronaldo seated side by side, both looking out at the ocean, backs turned to the camera, no filters, no spotlight. The caption was a single sentence. Some things can't be bought: respect, legacy, and brotherhood. It garnered millions of likes within the hour. Not just because of who posted it, but because of what it meant. Two men who were pushed into a media-driven rivalry for over a decade had demonstrated, without a hint of arrogance, what real greatness looked like when ego stepped aside. And while Ronaldo's post made waves, Messi remained offline. No comments, no stories, no response. His silence had become his signature. His humility, his shield. It wasn't that he didn't care. It was that he knew the most powerful truths don't always need to be spoken, they need to be lived. Meanwhile, something even more surprising began to take shape. Other influencers, many who had built their careers around artificial perfection and shallow trends, began to follow Rayhan's lead. Not with more apologies or public self-shaming, but with change. Real change. One influencer known for luxury shopping hauls posted a raw video of herself volunteering at a youth shelter. Another turned off comments and ad monetization on his content for a week and began documenting his experience working with a local football academy that supported underprivileged children. The ripple effect was undeniable. Even in the media, headlines took a different tone. Messi's silent masterclass, read one. How Ronaldo sat down and lifted up his greatest rival, read another. One columnist wrote, in a world full of loud heroes, Messi remains the whisper that changes everything. But perhaps the most profound shift wasn't in the press or the internet. It was in the eyes of the people who had been there that day. Those who had stood on the dock, mocking greatness they didn't recognize until it was reflected back through kindness. Those who, for one short afternoon, had witnessed two icons remind them what it meant to be human first and famous second. They wouldn't forget it. Not ever. And somewhere on the quiet sea, under a sky full of stars, Messi leaned back on the deck of the yacht that had once been mocked, smiled at the night, and said to Ronaldo, "Funny how life works, isn't it?" Ronaldo smiled back, sipping his drink. "Not funny," he replied. "Just poetic." The world has a strange way of measuring greatness. It often counts trophies, bank accounts, brand deals, and the loudest applause in the biggest arenas. It ranks likes, followers, views, and how many cars you park outside your mansion. But every once in a while, something happens that forces people to recalibrate, to shift their eyes away from the glitter and look at the glow of something much deeper. By the time morning sunlight bathed the marina in its soft golden hue, the story of Lionel Messi's unexpected evening on the yacht had spread far beyond that quiet dock. It wasn't just a viral video anymore. It had become a mirror, held up to everyone who had forgotten what it meant to admire someone for their character instead of their status. It had become a lesson written not with words, but with action, humility, and presence. And yet, even as the internet buzzed and commentators analyzed the moment, Messi did what he always did. He stayed quiet. He left the marina early the next morning, not by helicopter or private limo, but in a small car shared with two friends. No publicist. No entourage. He didn't stop for interviews, and he didn't post a single thing on social media. There was no press conference, no dramatic statement. He left as he arrived, like a whisper in a world that screams. But his silence only amplified what had already happened. Unbeknownst to the world, before Messi left the island, he made one quiet stop with Ronaldo. The two had arranged, in complete secrecy, to visit the nearest local hospital. Not for a photo op, not for the news, and not because someone asked them to, but because the conversation the night before had reminded them of how many lives could be changed with the same kindness Messi had shown that young boy on the dock. They met with the director of the hospital behind closed doors. No cameras, no media. They didn't come bearing jerseys or autographs, but a quiet envelope that included a significant anonymous donation. The funds would go toward purchasing new pediatric equipment, expanding care for children with cancer, and setting up a long-term community fund to support underprivileged families needing treatment. But the most telling part wasn't the donation. It was the time. Messi and Ronaldo spent nearly 2 hours sitting beside children who didn't fully understand who they were, kids whose eyes had grown dim from illness, who had more tubes than toys, and who had forgotten how to smile. By the time the two players left, smiles had returned. Nurses stood at the door, some with wet cheeks, some simply shaking their heads in disbelief. One whispered to another, they didn't act like legends. They acted like fathers. And when word of the visit eventually trickled out, not through official channels but through grateful parents and humbled staff, it didn't come with hashtags or filters. It came with reverence. The kind you can't fake. The kind you don't need to promote. Back in the world of headlines and gossip, the ripples continued. People started talking not about the yachts or the fashion, but about kindness, forgiveness, and the quiet dignity Messi carried like a crown he never wore. Celebrities weighed in not with selfies, but with praise. Even some of Messi's critics, longtime skeptics who had once called him too quiet, too reserved, too emotionally distant, had nothing to say now but, I misjudged him. Sports analysts who had spent years arguing over who was better, Messi or Ronaldo, began rethinking the entire debate. Maybe, they said, the rivalry was never meant to divide people. Maybe it was meant to teach us something, about two men who, in different ways, carried greatness with the kind of grace the world desperately needed to see. But even with all the global praise and the shifting narrative, Messi remained still. No interviews. No response to the flood of media coverage. He simply returned to training. Another day. Another match ahead. Another young player to mentor. For him, that dockside moment wasn't a career highlight. It wasn't a brand win. It was life. A reminder that even in the most artificial environments, authenticity could still take root. As for the boy, the one with the old jersey and the lucky ball, his life changed in more ways than he could understand. People found him, reached out to his family, offered support, scholarships, mentorships. His small town, once invisible on the map, became a symbol of innocence meeting inspiration. He began playing with more confidence, more joy. Not because he believed he would become the next Messi, but because he now believed in the why behind the game, that football, at its core, was about connection, heart and courage. In the days that followed, Rayhan's video continued to trend, now climbing into the tens of millions of views. It was being played in classrooms, boardrooms, and football academies across the world. People weren't just watching it, they were reflecting on it, talking about it at dinner tables and coffee shops, wondering where else in life they had mistaken simplicity for insignificance. And amid all of this, a new kind of trend emerged. People began doing acts of quiet kindness, paying for strangers' meals, volunteering at shelters, sending anonymous gifts to those in need, and tagging them with one phrase, inspired by Messi. For once, it wasn't a trend built around profit, clout, or virality. It was built around something purer. A few days later, a simple mural appeared on a crumbling wall in a poor neighborhood in Lisbon. It showed a young boy juggling a ball while two towering silhouettes stood behind him, Messi on one side, Ronaldo on the other, both watching, smiling, hands on the boy's shoulders. Underneath, in bold letters, someone had written, "The real legacy isn't in the trophies you win. It's in the hearts you touch." And perhaps, in the end, that's what Messi had always known. That greatness isn't about being seen by millions. It's about being remembered by one, for the right reason. No spotlight. No statement. Just a man on a quiet yacht, reminding the world what truly matters.